Steel Curtain Network.
Touchdown! Touchdown para Calvin Austin! El Monte Washington es arma. ¿Quién más? ¿Quién más? DJ Watt!
What is going on, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Steelers Preview. I'm Jeff Hartman, joined by the regular trio returns, Dave Schofield and Brian Davis. Dave, welcome to the show. How's it going?
It's going. We're in April. We are, what is it? 3 weeks from tonight?
Well, 3 weeks tonight. You're right. 3 weeks tonight.
We won't be doing this show quite at this time because I'm just going to call you guys out here live. Are we doing what we did last year where we're going live the whole time?
Oh, we're actually doing that and then some. That's something I've been working on behind the scenes, but I'll fill you guys in.
Nice. Okay. I love it.
I trust you, so I'm excited.
That was the live fun last year.
The live stream will be back. We will be back, and it's going to be. I'm excited for this live stream. So, anyways, Brian Davis, what's up? How's it going?
I'm just hoping I'm invited. No, I'm doing great. What a beautiful. I mean, it was cool here where we're coming from, but I tell you what, knowing that it's April, knowing that we're 3 weeks away, knowing that a lot of questions are going to be answered, man, I love this time of year. This is, to me, this is like the day after my birthday, because the day after my birthday, December 4th, my birthday is December 3rd, but December 4th is exactly 3 weeks until Christmas. So for me, we're gearing up. My birthday's behind me, and now I'm ready to. I'm looking at more things than I ever have. I'm familiar with names that I never thought I'd hear from. But my favorite part of this draft is looking for the names that are going to be tough for Yinzers to pronounce, and I can't even pronounce some.
No, we are getting down to crunch time. And I wanted to ask you guys, and this is going to be a great segue into our discussion on the top 30 visits and who the Steelers have brought in so far in terms of positionally, player prospects, etc. When it comes to learning about these players, the three of us on this program are not typically college football junkies. We might follow college, we might watch every now and then, but really, we're NFL guys and we're Steeler fans. So, Dave, I know you do the mock draft Monday article, but that's only one player a week. So how are you getting acquainted with these players? What does your process look like?
One player a week. No, not exactly. Well, that one's tricky because I do everything I can, and I've been able to pull it off so far, that I do not have a repeat. So I start when the Steelers season's over, and I do it every Monday up until the draft, and I don't have a repeat. But sometimes that gets tough. So therefore, I have a pretty good grasp on players that are around that the Steelers could potentially take in the first round. Therefore, then I also have an idea of stuff with the second round, just kind of because it kind of flows into it a little bit to where I can feel all right there. Really, when it gets past the first couple rounds, it's just like, why do I want to get to know everybody when I could just get to know who the Steelers like after they make the selection? So that's, you guys know, Brian's jumped on board with me many times. I don't really try to fall in love with anybody in the draft because I don't want to fall in love with someone who ends up wearing purple or orange. So I try to have an idea of what's going on. More than anything, I try to have an idea of what's not going on and just roll with it and see what happens.
All right, Brian Davis, what do you do? What's your process look like?
Yeah, I have so many tiers to this process. The first one is I can't believe that I'm going to give these guys props, but I should because they're very good at it. I love listening to Andrew Wilbar and Jeremy Betts, but if you can get past the Michigan and the Ohio State biases, it's really, really good. But because I'm like, will you quit talking about all these Wolverines? But they're all over the place, and I get it. I also listen to Roy Countryman. You can check him out on Fridays, along with Rob on the Black and Gold Blueprint here on the Steel Curtain Network. I listen to those guys. But recently what I've been doing is I've been going to the mock draft simulator And if it's a name that I don't know and they're up and I'm looking by position, I'll click on them. I use Pro Football Network for that, and I get a good idea. And then I go to my own notebook that I have, and I go to usually CBS, and I write down the top 15 at each position. Right now, I'm ignoring tight end, and I'm not looking as much at edge rusher. I'm want to get to know edge rusher, just so I know who's coming up in the draft for other teams. But I'm looking at what the Steelers need, and I'm familiarizing myself with these names. And what happens as I continue to do the mock draft simulator, I'm able to go deeper into 7 rounds because I know some of these names.
And for me, I just, like Dave, you said, I don't want to fall in love with anybody. I'm not watching film on anyone. I just want to recognize, oh, that player got drafted. I'm familiar with the name, where they went to school, their position. Like, that's really about it. And then I obviously am going to be excited when the Steelers pick and see who they take. I try to at least have a knowledge base of 2 rounds. And then if I can get into the 3rd round, I'm pretty good. When we get to day 3, I'm clueless. Like, we have to have Andrew or Jeremy on our day 3 live stream almost the entire time, because it's we're just literally just like, I got no idea who this guy is. So why don't you tell us something about him? So we have, and even when you get into the day 3 prospects, a lot of people's big boards start to really run out because how many players are on your big board? I know Roy Countryman, he typically does anywhere from 200 to 300 players. I know that Andrew Wilbar's done his top 100, but think about how many picks are made and how many players are gone quickly. I just like to have some type of, especially with the live stream, if we're talking about these guys, you don't want to be that guy that's like, oh, who's Abdul Carter? You want to know the big names in the draft because it's important. I've always said, though, if I didn't do this as a job and if I didn't create content for the Steelers, this goes all the way back to Behind the Steel Curtain and before that, I probably wouldn't even watch. I would just see who the Steelers pick the next day, and then I would start doing my homework on them, because I've become obsessed with the process because I think it's really fun. And if you listen to my Monday Let's Ride with Roderick David, when he talked about the process of being in a draft room and what that's like, gosh, I would kill to be a fly on the wall. I don't want to have any say in it. I just want to be there to see what it would be like. But ultimately, I just care about who the Steelers draft. So it'd be, if I woke up the next day and picked up the laptop, turned open my laptop, or picked up my phone and said, oh, here's who they got. Let's see who they got. I'd be okay with that too. So the draft has definitely become its own event. It's its own beast. It's awesome. Dave, any final thoughts on that?
No, I'm good.
All right, Brian.
Yeah, it is an amazing process. Now, I've been watching the draft faithfully since 1987. And
Yes.
So I've been watching it. I remember that 87 draft because I didn't know much about Rod Woodson. I just know that Tony Dungy said, hey, we don't even want to waste time. There's no way he's going to be, for us at number 10. And that draft was at 7:00 in the morning. It started on a Thursday morning, and I conveniently had a migraine. But the migraine went away quick when I realized the draft was on. So I ran downstairs and I was home alone, and I felt like Ferris Bueller, but in a more geekier way, watching the draft. And I fell in love with the coverage. And that's how I fell in love with the process.
Okay. So let's talk about the process, where we are now in this process. When you think about it in totality, what does it look like? So the season ends for college football, whether they play in their bowl games, playoff, doesn't matter. The season ends. Then you have all-star games, whether it's the East-West Shrine Bowl, the North-South Senior Bowl, all that stuff. Then after that, you're gearing up for the NFL Scouting Combine, which was really cool this year that Coach Kevin Smith got to attend the event as a part of Fans First Sports Network. It was great to have boots on the ground, so to speak. Then you have the pro days. The pro days are wrapping up. So now where are we in the month of April? We are in the top 30 visit season. Just so everyone remembers, the teams get 30 visits. They don't have to use all their visits. That's first and foremost. Secondly, local visits don't count. So for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Penn State, I believe they are within the radius. I think that's a local visit. Pitt, obviously. West Virginia University, they are in that radius. I don't know if any are any Ohio schools in the radius is what I'm trying to think of. Dave, do you remember?
Not that I know of.
Or Brian?
I don't believe so. Because I think Ohio State, I know Ohio State is not. And so as far as everything goes, if it is one, I think it would be very small.
Division I, I don't believe.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't think so.
So a lot of people view top 30 visits in a different way. Some people say that this is, and as the title of the podcast suggests, these are breadcrumbs that the team is showing you, like positionally, prospects that they like. Other people say this could be all smoke and mirrors. The Steelers bring in a player they know they're not going to draft. Why? Other teams might think they're interested. They might think, oh my gosh, the Steelers might do something. Hey, there is some gamesmanship to the NFL draft. I'm not about to suggest there isn't. So what we want to do is we want to take a look at what the Steelers have done so far, take a look at position totals, and then see, are there any breadcrumbs to follow? What do we think after? And we're only in the first week of April. There's still the majority of these visits are still yet to happen. So here's what we know right now. So official pre-draft visits. These are visits that were actually announced by the Steelers and their staff. So Louisville quarterback Tyler Shuck, Ole Miss defensive tackle JJ. I think it's Pegues. Good luck. I don't know. There you go. Pegues. A local visit, West Virginia offensive lineman Wyatt Millam, I think. Kansas State running back DJ Giddens. Tennessee running back Dylan Sampson. Iowa defensive tackle. Is it Yahya Black?
It's Yahya.
Yahya. Cool. TCU wide receiver. Is it Savion Williams?
Savion.
There you go. Virginia Tech running back Bashal Tootin.
Yep.
I got it. Iowa State wide receiver Jaden Higgins. And then Pitt place kicker Ben Sauls is a local visit. Now, as of today, Thursday, they announced some more, and that is the Pittsburgh Steelers bring in Texas wide receiver Matthew Golden, Florida State cornerback. Goodness gracious. How do you say this name, Brian? Azaria Thomas?
That's the A. Thomas. Thomas. That's the one that I'm excited about. I just can't pronounce it yet.
Okay. Iowa running back Caleb Johnson and Pitt tight end, which would be local, Gavin Bartholomew. So if you're looking at positional totals, and I haven't done the tracker update for everyone yet, this would be 3 wide receivers, 4 running backs. This would be the first tight end that they would be bringing in. And let's see here, cornerback. I'm seeing if they have another cornerback. No, this would be their first defensive back as well. So with all that being said, Dave, what are the breadcrumbs telling you?
Honestly, they don't tell me much because I take top 30 visits and kind of lump them in with who they talk to at pro days, who they talk to at Senior Bowl, who they talk to at the combine. They're just trying to make sure that they cover talking to people someplace or the other. I mean, have you heard that, the Steelers took this player out to dinner or something before their pro day and they have a top 30 visit? I don't think there's been ever any kind of overlap in that regard. I think that the Steelers will meet with them one way or the other somewhere. And this is just making sure, hey, some of the local guys, it allows them to not even have to worry about talking to them at the combine or something like that. They just know they'll bring him in for a visit and they can focus somewhere else. So that's some of the stuff to look at, but I'm not looking at, the Steelers are going in this direction because of their visits. I'm not all on board with that.
Okay. Brian, what about you?
Well, I think Dave's right when it comes to the local visits because one, you have so many people you want to talk to at that combine and it's free. A guy like Wyatt Millam is interesting. I've seen them looking at the interior offensive lineman and that's that's a day 3 pick possibly that they can go ahead and look at. Somebody on the live chat, I respect them saying that we don't need a tight end, but this also bringing Gavin Bartholomew in. I mean, he doesn't have to go that far because he's at Pitt. But the nice thing about that is it also gives him experience as well. and it puts his name on the radar. But I look at something like Jackson Dart, and I don't think they're serious about Jackson Dart. I definitely feel like the Jackson Dart thing is kind of like Dave mentioned, smoke and mirrors, because that could be a thing that if he falls to the Steelers, that's perfect trade down material too. So you really want to kind of make it look like you're interested in some of these guys too, to try to garner interest in a trade. Because if there's a team that's picking still in the first round or early in the second round and wants that quarterback, then you can go ahead and get some extra draft capital and still get a guy that you probably want, like one of those defensive linemen.
Which I should say, and I forgot to mention this, that we have a category on the tracker that I run for SteelCurtainNetwork.com, which is pre-draft visit rumors. So this is when sometimes it's an agent, sometimes it's another website gets word of a player's going to visit the Steelers, but it hasn't happened yet. So these players have been rumored to be eventually visiting with the Steelers, but it hasn't happened as of yet. Jackson Dart, Ole Miss quarterback that Brian, you just mentioned, he's one of those. SMU defensive tackle Elijah Roberts, Oklahoma State running back Ole Gordon II, and Iowa State wide receiver Jalen Noel are all slated to be pre-draft visits at some point, rumored, not official. So I'll tell you what I do is I do like to look at not the player, but I look at the position. The Steelers typically, since they've started the in-person visits again the last few years, they typically will do their homework on certain positions, which are positions of need typically. Like, I don't know why the place kicker was brought in. Maybe they just need a camp leg. And they're like, hey, if you're around, we're going to take you as an undrafted rookie. I don't know, the Pitt kid. But still.
And they should if he is, honestly.
Yeah, if he is, yeah, for sure. Because they have a great track record of their kickers, punter and place kicker, finding new homes after training camp when you look at all the different scenarios that they've had. But for me, I look at, okay, what positions did they really do their homework on? And that's not something that I really do until, they're done with their pre-draft visits, which is about a week before the draft. So still anxious to see who else is going to come in. I'm kind of curious about the quarterbacks, if I'm being honest with you. Like I said, Jackson Dart was rumored to be visiting. Tyler Shuck did visit. What about Quinn Ewers of Texas? I've heard the Steelers are very high on him, not as a potential starter, but maybe a backup. They do need that. Couple other players that are out there. Will Howard, what about him? They like him. What's the thought there? So I do take these with a grain of salt, but I also don't just dismiss them either. I think there is some value there. Dave, do you want to say something?
I was going to say sometimes they want to bring in a player because they're like, we weren't really interested in this player, but if something happens where they're available where we don't expect them to be, we should at least know about it. Was it 2 years ago, apparently? I think it was on a top 30 visit, or maybe it was meeting at the combine or something, that apparently the Steelers really did not like Christian Gonzalez, the cornerback that ended up going high. That was one of those, that was the year they got Broderick Jones. I don't know if that was true or not. That was some rumors that are out there. I don't want to necessarily say that was definite. But you look at something like Jackson Dart, and people look at, they bring in Jackson Dart. Maybe the Steelers could be going quarterback in round one. That's what some people believe. To me, that's the Steelers saying, hey, this is a guy now that people might want to even take before we have. If he falls and no one's drafting him, and we're back on the board in the third round, and teams still haven't taken him, you'd like to have a reason to or not to take him, not just because you don't want to be left in a situation where, we heard this guy's really good. We never thought we would draft him at a place that he would be going. And now he's available to us when we didn't expect it. We haven't done our homework on him. Yeah. That's why I'm like, this is really about doing their homework on everybody.
And if you look at, okay, did they meet with them at, let's say, the Senior Bowl? Did they have a formal meeting with them at the scouting combine? Did they go out to dinner with them? Was the brass at their pro day? Do they bring him in for a top 30 visit? If they check all those boxes, there's interest. There is definite interest. It doesn't mean they're going to draft the player, but there's certain interest, or there's a constant need to figure out like, okay, what's going on with this player? Again, I referenced Monday's Let's Ride, which I thought was fascinating when I talked to Roderick about, what did he do as a scout? He goes, man, you asked a ton of questions. They had people that like psychologists would interview these players. Like they really do try to figure out what makes this player tick and if it's going to be a good decision to draft him. Brian, what any thoughts that you have?
Yeah, you know what? Another one of my strategies is to look at these lists and look at the list of the pro day visits, look at the other things like the combine, who they went to dinner with, and all of that, and I focus on them a little bit more because those are players that they've shown some kind of interest in, and of course they could be smoke screens. And I do want to preface that if you just look at the top 30 list, you might be alarmed. Why didn't they talk to Kenneth Grant? But I believe Mike Tomlin had an opportunity to talk to him at the combine, but most of the brass did not get to go to the pro day for Michigan because that was the drop in from Aaron Rodgers that day. So they were able to send some people there, but you might actually see them invite some Michigan people now that if they're more interested in, to try to get them there if they did not have a good conversation with them at the combine because they were expecting to go there. If I go back a couple years, I remember Mike Tomlin doing drills as a corner with George Pickens. And I didn't know who George Pickens really was until I saw that and I started paying attention. Just like 2 years ago, I started paying attention to Darnell Washington because they did visit with him, whether it was the pro day, but they spent some time with him, and those guys get on your radar. And then that's why I start trying to get to know those guys, because Dave and I had a conversation on the phone today, and he said he's never really looked into the numbers of it, but I would be curious to know how many guys that they never met with in any process did they not visit with or have a dinner with or talk to at the combine? How many did they draft? And I would have a feeling that it's very low. I would think that they're having conversations with most of these guys.
I think that they talk to every prospect it's at one point or another, and it's just a matter of how many times do they feel they need to talk to that player, whether it's to personality traits, whether it's that maybe it's an injury checkup. Like that's another thing that people forget, is that some of these things might be injury based. And at a top 30 visit, they can have their doctors look at the player. They can maybe even put them through a couple tests, stuff like that. Like that is a part of the process. So, all right. What we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about some of the latest news surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers and the NFL, get some takes on some things that are happening, and then we'll do some trivia and call it a show. But if you're watching live on any platform, don't go anywhere. We're not going anywhere. For those on the audio side, we'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. All right, we are back. Thank you all for being patient. And I want to start off the second half with a question. I asked Jerome Betts this on the All Bets Are Off segment, but I want to get y'all's take. Everyone that has a microphone in front of their face that talks about the Steelers at some point has said, the same type of thing. Well, they're going to draft a defensive lineman, or maybe they'll draft a quarterback, or maybe it'll be a running back. It could be a wide receiver. It's really those four positions that have dominated the discussion. If there was a position that you could see the Steelers taking in round one that has not been talked about a lot, what position would that be? Dave, I'm going to let you go first.
Okay, so the four you said again was, I want to make sure I'm not repeating.
Defensive line, quarterback, wide receiver, running back. Yes.
You said quarterback, right?
Quarter, yes.
Yes. So I would say, to me, the biggest thing is going to be, do the Steelers get a player in the first round because they were there and you weren't expecting them to? That they feel that it's too good of a value to pass up. I'll be honest with you, I think that's what happened last year with Troy Fautanu. They just drafted an offensive tackle the year before, and I don't think they expected Fautanu to be there when they were drafting, and he was. So to me, I would say if a really good cornerback was there, I could see them doing that in round one. But for me, when it comes to corner, I may go big or go home. If you want to get somebody that's going to be the guy to come in, maybe Brian, what's the name of the guy KT was talking about in your show that he likes so much?
John A. Barron, and I was going to talk about
because he's
him.
Because he could be a slot guy for a year if it's Slay and Porter while he gets his feet wet and could be ready to take over the outside later. If you got somebody that you're just looking at crazy value there because of the way the draft fell, that's about the only other one I could say. I mean, my goodness. I mean, some people were saying, what if Tyler Warren falls? I don't think he will. And I don't know if I think that most positions, I would say, if somebody fell that was that good there, like a tight end, like an outside linebacker, edge rusher, that would be a better situation that would be available for the Steelers 21. That would be your better situation to trade back if there was such a great value of a player there, but it's not something that you would really need. That's where I would rather see that. So to me, it would be corner would be the only other one I would throw there, but I would still put my money on one of those other ones that you said.
All right, Brian, what about you? So you agreeing with Dave at corner?
Yeah, my answer was corner. So let me go a little off the charts here, and there's this weird feeling that if the right guy falls at offensive tackle, they might even go there again. That seems very
insane
odd
to go offensive tackle in the first round 3 years in a row.
I know, but that it depends who you're talking to. It depends whether you feel that Broderick Jones moving to left tackle solves his problems. I know Andrew mentioned that on the show a couple weeks back, that he feels that Broderick's problems are going to be completely gone because he's moving over to offensive tackle. My number one answer was cornerback, but to shake things up, you can always see offensive line being something that they go for, not center, of course. I feel like they're good there, but it's a long shot, but you never know.
I have a question for you, Brian, because a position that I thought of potentially would be guard. But is there really a guard that you would expect to go in the top 20 that you'd be surprised that the Steelers could get at 21? I don't know that there is one.
Not really, Dave.
So that's why I wouldn't go there. Other than that, I'd go with a position like that.
But your trade back scenario is kind of right on. And because I was talking about that earlier when I was talking about the Jackson Dart smokescreen, I do not expect them to go quarterback in the first round. But I think if they're smart, they act like they're going to take one.
Yeah. And I've said before, people that say trade back. It's hard to do it because you need someone who needs to trade up. But if there's someone who's sitting there that, wow, some people might say the Steelers should really consider taking this person at 21 just because what are they doing there? But it's not something that the Steelers, I did a mock draft where I highlighted a mock draft Monday where it was the edge rusher from Georgia, I'm pretty sure.
Jalen Walker?
Yeah, that's supposed to go like top 10 that, he was there and they have the Steelers taking him at 21. I'm like, if he's sitting there at 21, you should be able to find someone that can't believe that edge rusher is still there and would want to come up and take him at 21 more than what you would want to have him.
Well, I mean, you guys said the secondary, which I agree with. Jeremy's answer, not to tease the Let's Ride podcast, was safety. When he had,
is there one?
He had 3 that were
okay.
Yeah, 3.
That was my biggest thing with that one too.
Yep. And a lot of them are very versatile players, kind of like what Kevin Smith was talking about, can actually play in the slot, can be used in different ways. But if I'm thinking outside the box, offensive line would definitely be on the table. Because if there's a tackle there and you're like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe this guy is there, I could see the Steelers saying, could we move someone into guard? Could we move Fautanu or Broderick Jones into guard, and make this line the best it could possibly be?
Probably Fautanu would be more likely.
I would think so too, based on his size and stature. But if I was thinking, okay, let's put all these pieces of the puzzle together in terms of what's really going on with the Steelers outside of prospects. TJ Watt's contract, right? what if they can't get a deal done and the Steelers say, okay, we're going to draft a pass rusher in the first round. We're going to get a guy. We're going to get a guy in case you don't feel like what we're offering you is good enough and maybe you want to move on to greener pastures. That would rock the boat big time. But I also have to be honest, like Nick Herbig, is Nick Herbig what we thought he was? He has shown flashes of really, really solid play. I think sometimes I view him as like a one-trick pony in terms of pass rush moves. Alex Highsmith has been good. TJ Watt is great. But man, that's the one, if I'm going dark horse position, no one's expecting it, I think it'd be pass. I think it'd be edge rusher. That's what I would do.
I like that. As long as they're not reaching for a guy.
Yes.
Then I'm happy with who they're going to pull. But if it's a complete reach, and I look back to the Jarvis Joneses of the world, I even look back being hell-bent a couple years ago on a quarterback in Kenny Pickett. It's like drafting the position they did that with Artie Burns as well. Drafting, what's that?
Terrell Edmonds.
You drafting the position is dangerous. And taking a reach because very rarely works.
All right. I want to ask you all one more question before we dive into some news stuff. All right. I'm going to say a scenario and I want you to tell me what your reaction would be. Keep it to a sentence. All right. Pick number 21, the Pittsburgh Steelers select a quarterback. Okay. So it's not going to be Cam Ward, but there's a number of other quarterbacks that have been rumored to be in that late first round. It could be Shadur Sanders. It could be Jackson Dart. To me, they're all the same. My reaction would be the same either way. Dave, what would your reaction be if they took a quarterback at 21?
Let's see here. My reaction, I think the best way to say it would be more like,
oh my gosh, don't take Kenny Pickett. Don't take Kenny Pickett. You shut the front door. Oh gosh.
That would be
those listening. That was me back in 2022 when they selected Kenny Pickett. But I supported the guy. You can't say I didn't. I gave him a chance.
Yeah, you did.
I am not going to like it if they're taking a quarterback in the first round. But of course, exactly like what Jeff said, I'm going to dig into everything and I'm going to find every reason to then have to like it after the fact.
Yeah. I'll go ahead and say mine was shut the front door because I knew you were going to play that clip. So if I'm using a sentence like I suggested, that was my sentence. Shut the front door. Brian, what about you?
Mine would be just front or just fire truck and take out a few letters. Seriously, I would be really upset because they're gearing for it next year. That's really what they're doing. They're gearing for it next year. And this is the reaching for a pick that we just talked about. We just got done talking about it, and that would be exactly trying to fill it because I don't think that they really. This is the whole Blizzard situation. You're going and you're just like, my gosh, I have to get lima beans because there's nothing else on the shelf, but there's a blizzard coming and we got to eat. And that's exactly what they'll do if they go ahead and take a quarterback here. That's why you haven't seen them take one in free agency so far. Also, they're playing that compensation pick game. So that's why you're not going to see a Joe Flacco come in because that might cost them a pick next year. So with that all being said, I think that would be such a reach. So I would be despondent. I would be demoralized. I would be done. Not done with the Steelers, but just done for the night.
I want to have it on tape here. Set the record straight that I am okay if they draft a quarterback. I just don't want them to do it at 21.
Yes,
we had this conversation our Slack channel today when Joe Milton was traded from the Patriots to the Cowboys, and a lot of people in our staff were very upset. And I said it because I was thinking it as I was walking around Lowe's is I would have been okay trading for Joe Milton, but I never would have viewed him as a long-term answer or possible future franchise quarterback. he would have been a good backup. The Steelers still need a good long-term backup. I don't think people realize that. Go back into the Ben Roethlisberger era. There's never a question who was starting, but you had plenty of backups that always kind of stuck around. Brian St. Pierre. We all remember Charlie Batch. Dennis Dixon did it. And you could even go into the Mason Rudolph after he was drafted and even going into 2019. They do need to draft a quarterback, but I don't want it to be anywhere in really day 1 or 2. I want it to be a day 3 pick. If it's a Quinn Ewers from Texas, okay, great. That guy could be a good backup quarterback. I don't have a problem with that. But my gosh, just not at 21. I think that would be a very, very silly move. Go ahead, Dave. What were you going to say?
I wouldn't even be if the right guy's there I'm assuming they're keeping their picks that they have now, that in the 3rd round, I still wouldn't even be against that. My thing is when you invest a 1st round pick in a quarterback, are you going to turn around and take another one next year in the 1st round? And I'm not saying they should wait because next year's better, because I'm not banking on next year being better. I am not. I'm just banking on well, and I say better, maybe I should say this. I'm not banking on next year being the answer or next year being great. I'm just banking on this year not being good. That's what it is. So if you go ahead and take somebody at 21, how much time do you have to invest in a 1st round pick before you can write them off? Well, it's usually 3 or 4 years. And that's why I say Kenny Pickett actually did the Steelers a favor if he wasn't going to be the guy by asking to be traded, because the Steelers weren't stuck for 2 more years still trying to figure out before they started to look to see if somebody else could be the guy. If you take a quarterback in the 1st round this year, are you going to turn around and take one again in the 1st round next year? I would have to preclude that. Or if you did, then my goodness, what are you missing out on? Taking quarterbacks in the 1st round in back-to-back years, I believe, is a huge mistake. Now, it doesn't mean that other teams haven't done it, but
there's
either you made the mistake the first time and had to try to remedy it, or what are you doing?
There are some people that think the Steelers should go the way of the Tennessee Titans. If you think back, 2022, they take Andrew Wilbar's boy, Malik Willis. It was like in the 5th round, though, right? So they take him.
I thought it was
3rd.
Third? Okay, yeah. 3rd round. But it was not day 1 or it was late day 2. So he comes out of Liberty, I think, is where he came out of college. And then the next year, they take Will Levis right after the Steelers took Joey Porter Jr., because remember there were rumors that they wanted to trade up to make sure they got their guy. The Hellman mayonnaise guy. Still can't believe Will Levis does that. But anyways, now they're projected to take Cam Ward in the 1st round, and they've traded Willis. He's now a member of the Packers, I think. Levis, is that really what people want to do? There's some people that just keep drafting them until you get one right. Okay, I understand some of the premise behind that. I just can't get behind it. Brian, what do you think?
Quarterback is the one position where you have got to do due diligence and make sure that you uncover every rock and you have all the meetings in the world with your staff and say, this is our guy. If you have doubt, then probably don't pick him, because that's really where you get in trouble in the 1st round. You look at the rates, it's like a 50% rate for 1st round quarterbacks. It's not that successful. And in the last few years, 1st round quarterbacks have not been really burning up the Pro Bowl rosters. So I can actually say that you're not going to be likely to be successful if you're reaching again. And that's my word of the day, reach. If you're reaching for a guy at 21, then you're going to be in trouble. But if you act like it, I'm going back to that same thing, and you act like it, that you're interested in these guys, and then you have an opportunity for one of them to fall to you, then next thing you know, you can go ahead, trade down a couple of slots and get a desperate team that wants the guy. I'd be calling the Browns. I don't care if they're in the division. I'd be, especially if Shador, I'm praying for the Browns to take Shador, because I think that'd be the dumbest thing ever. But if they don't take Shador and he's still there, I'm calling the Browns first. And I'm saying, guys, let's give me your number 2. and give me your number 2 and maybe a 5, and you can move up and get your quarterback here. And they've moved up to get quarterbacks before. They moved up to get Brandon Weeden back in the DeCastro year. They've moved up a few times. I remember they had 3 first-round picks, and they took Manziel that year. I mean, gosh, there's dumb teams do desperate things. Desperate teams do dumb things. So take advantage of them. And Omar Khan's the kind of guy that can do that, but don't become desperate and dumb yourself.
I do have to say this, I fell into the trap. So once the compensatory theory was out there, and then especially when Omar Khan said, yep, that's what we're doing. And we're like, oh my God, he just admitted it. I can't believe he just said that. I fell into the trap. I was like, okay, I'm going to take a look. I had Roy Countryman on my Let's Ride podcast, and I asked him about the 2026 crop of quarterbacks, like out of curiosity. Everyone's saying like, that's the year. This year sucks. That year's going to be better. And when I did some quick research, a couple things to keep in mind, folks, is that not all of those players are definitely going to be in the draft. Everyone's like, Arch Manning. Arch Manning is still a really young man. And he very well might say, I'm getting paid a hell of a lot of money at NIL money at Texas. I might stick around and try to win a national championship. I won't be being draft eligible until in 2027's draft. That's a possibility. But there is a good group of quarterbacks coming up. It reminds me of last year's group. When you think about like the Bo Nixes, the Drake Mays, the Jaden Daniels, there's just more. There's more quality quarterbacks. If they say that this year it's just Cam Ward, there's more Cam Wards in next year's crop. So for me, I think that it's one of those situations where it's like everyone's so easy to push to next year, and I'm fine with that. But let's also remember injuries happen. Players decide to stay in college for another year. Not everyone that we think is going to be there is going to be there. But Dave, do you have anything to wrap this segment up?
Well, the question was about the drafting them year after year.
Yeah.
Yeah. As you know, Jeff, I'm going to defer that question because you already know that's coming up in unpopular opinion.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Good stuff. Brian, any final thoughts there?
No, I agree with it. I like the fact that you're looking at 2026 because I am also, and I listened to Roy. Roy was also on one of our shows today. Yesterday, the Steel City Insider with
it was today.
It was today.
Okay, it's normally on Wednesday, but remember, we had to switch it around. Yeah,
I listened to it today, though, so I've
the random.
And he did say a lot of those things. But when you talk about the NIL money, I'm betting some of that NIL money right now that you don't see Arch until 2027. I think they're strategic. That's what the Mannings know how to do it. And my gosh, he is getting a mint. He's getting so much money. And there was the rumor that Oregon, because Taylor Gabriel is in the draft process and he's not going to go high. But since he's gone, Oregon still feels like they have a team that they were offering Quinn Ewers about $4 million to forego the draft and come 1 year to Oregon. That was a rumor right around January. So that was out there. So they are paying these quarterbacks to stay. Now, I don't think that's going to happen this year, but next year, some of these guys you're talking about won't be there because the game has changed. The process has changed. Everything is different. But I'm looking at some of these names right now that will be there, like a Drew Aller probably from Penn State. People are loving him. There's a few guys that
kid from Tennessee. I can't say his last name, but there's a kid from Tennessee.
Yeah, I can't pronounce it either. And Roy mentioned some of these guys on that show, so make sure you check that out.
All right. Okay. Trivia time, Dave. You ready?
Sure. All right.
Let's start trivia then.
The suspense is growing. All right. I don't know if any of you all listened to Pittsburgh Standard Time this morning, but I said something on there that I wasn't sure about, so I thought I would go look it up. So I did, and it's now turned into trivia. And what I was looking up was we were talking about the various rule changes or potential rule changes and how it would affect the Steelers. And I said, I don't think the Steelers have ever hosted a playoff game where they didn't have a better record. Turns out I was not correct. When have the Steelers hosted a game because they were the division champion, but they did not have a better record than their opponent?
I was going to ask for go ahead, Brian. I was going to ask for era if you didn't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to hear era too. I would think that it would have.
Okay, I'll give you at least this much. It's since there has been 4 divisions.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah, I'm going to say 2007. The Jacksonville Jaguars probably had a better record.
And you would be correct.
Nice.
In 2007, the Pittsburgh Steelers won the AFC North. This was Mike Tomlin's first playoff game. They had lost to Jacksonville earlier in the season, hadn't they?
Yep.
Yes.
They hosted the Jaguars, and the Jaguars were favored. And that was where the Steelers, once again, in Pittsburgh, getting screwed by Josh Scobie, because they lost on a field goal with less than a minute left. When they lost 31-29, they had a failed 2-point conversion to go up 3 with just about 6.5 minutes left in the game. But the Steelers were actually underdogs at home, and they covered because they were 2.5-point underdogs. And they
It
lost
was a crazy game.
All right. Is that it, Dave?
I mean, if you want, I had another trivia, but I changed it to this one. So if you want another one, I can give you, or I can hold off on it.
I'm feeling it, Jeff.
All right, go ahead.
You're feeling it because I almost asked Jeff this one last week.
That's got to be a
just to do
stupid
it.
one. Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, no, but yes, it's enough that I think this is easy enough that I think Jeff can answer it. Okay. Who are the 4 members of the Pittsburgh Steelers all time to have over 10,000 all-purpose yards?
The 4 members of the Steelers.
Four players with the Steelers that had over 10,000 all-purpose yards.
I'm going to say Franco Harris is one.
Franco Harris is number 1, 14,449, according to Pro Football Reference. Okay.
I say is Jerome Bettis.
Jerome Bettis is number 4,
Okay.
11,379.
Brian, I'll let you ask. I'll let you go.
I'm going to go ahead with Antonio Brown.
Antonio Brown is number 2 at 14,258.
There's a part of me that wants to say Le'Veon Bell, but he didn't stay around long enough.
Nah, he wasn't around. Hines, I guess.
Is it? It's not Hines, is it?
Hines
had 12,720.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, because he had 10. Didn't he have like 1,000 catches and right around 10,000 yards receiving?
I don't have it completely broken down here in front of me. I have return yards and everything, which is, Bettis is the only one that did it without any return yards.
He was a monster.
But here's the interesting thing about that is, Le'Veon Bell, he had exactly 8,000, just so you know, when he's number 7. All right.
Not that far off for not sticking around very long.
No,
exactly.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I told you that Jerome Bettis was number 4 with 11,379.
Yeah.
Number 5 is at 8,834. So there's a big gap. There is nobody who is between 9,000 to 11,000.
Who's number 5?
Who do you think? 8,834.
Is that Lev?
No, Lev was
Lev's
8,000
8,000 exactly.
There's 2 more above Le'Veon Bell.
I would think it would be more recent years.
Nope.
Would I dare say Deontay Johnson?
Nope.
John Stallworth?
John Stallworth.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't even see. I'm still trying to find Deontay Johnson on here. Where's Deontay Johnson?
Well, I know he's like number 4 as far as receiving yards.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find him here. Unless he's just not, unless there's a glitch in their system. Okay,
Look
like
under
not
folder-
Najee Harris.
Dave,
17.
on your computer, look under folder Deontay Johnson Hate Club. That's probably where it would be.
Yeah. What's
Found
crazy is here's a this. Yeah, sorry to prolong this a little bit more. Ahead of Le'Veon Bell, behind John Stallworth, is a defender.
Rod Woodson.
That's what I say.
Rod
Rod
Woodson.
Woodson.
8,104.
That's
Wow.
insane.
Because remember, this is all-purpose yards. That includes interception returns.
Didn't he return? Was he a returner at all too?
Yes.
Oh yeah, big
Oh, yeah.
time.
I thought,
He
yeah.
had over 7,000 return yards.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
He was a
So
great
that's-
athlete, by the way,
Yes.
in case you didn't know.
Hurdler.
And he was begging back in 94 and 95 before he got hurt. He was practicing at wide receiver, and that's when Dion was doing it, and he was begging Cowher to let him do it. And I think the way they were talking about, they were going to start doing some packages in 95 to let him flirt with it. Then he got hurt
They
on
got hurt.
opening day.
Yep. Yeah. And just to answer, Deontay Johnson's 24th, 4,831.
That's where he belongs. All right.
Right
Let's
behind Walter Abercrombie, and just ahead of Gary Ballman.
Can we just expunge Deontay Johnson from Steelers records?
There you
please?
go.
All right, let's do some final thoughts. Brian, I'll let you go first.
Gentlemen, they have different different support groups for if you're an alcoholic, if you're having problems with weight, if you have a sex addiction, which I have problems with weight, Overeaters Anonymous. I think I've got a jersey problem. I really do. And I think I need help because, Jeff, I don't know if you saw it earlier, but I'm going to pan down.
Okay. Number 15.
I own a Ben Skoranek jersey as of today.
You act like this is some revelation. Like you didn't know that you had a problem. Like how many jerseys do you have of players that were like a flash in the pan of the Steelers that are just sitting and collecting dust somewhere?
I did pay $8 for it, so that's good. But I did get my Metcalfs, and I paid $8 for all of these. I paid $73 for 10 jerseys from China, so they all came. Well, 2 were missing, but I did the unthinkable, and I actually bought 2 jerseys for a player that is not on the team, just in case there's a number 8 and his name ain't Pickett.
You bought an Aaron Rodgers jersey?
I did.
You do have a problem. Like you have a serious problem.
I just want to be ahead of the curve if it happens. But
I gave up jerseys. I don't own any. Brian buys me jerseys. I haven't bought a jersey since Ben Roethlisberger's rookie year. So I said I'm done with jerseys. But
I do not have a Hank Poteet jersey, as 4TL asks. But now I will say this, in all seriousness, as you can see in my background, I love memorabilia. And I was in Breezewood today, and I had an opportunity to go to Crawford's, which is the black and gold headquarters. And man, I bought some stuff there, and it's fantastic. I got an Alejandro Villanueva piece of memorabilia that you can see back there. There's so many things that I got a chance to get, and I don't buy stuff from myself very often, but with the jerseys that I do buy, I don't spend a lot. I will tell you that. But I most of the stuff you see behind me, it was before kids and before a wife.
true. Dave Schofield, what's your final thoughts?
Yeah, when it comes to having a jersey, in order for it to be big enough to actually fit me, I don't have the option of buying cheap jerseys. So I have to pay a whole lot for all of that. But my final thoughts are I get worn out sometimes as we get close to the draft. I'm really excited, but where I get worn out is all the endless possibilities. And I really just want answers more than possibilities. I know what I'd like the Steelers to do. I'm hoping, maybe I can call my shot again, because 2 years ago when we did our our SCN draft, I had the Steelers pick. Who did I take? Broderick Jones. Last year when we had our FFSN draft and it came to our pick, I was pounding the table for a player, and we ended up taking him. Who was it?
Troy Fautanu.
Troy Fautanu. So maybe I don't know if I'm going to be in charge of making any kind of picks like that this year, maybe I can come up with another good one. But as much as anything, I just want to know who I can break down and say, this makes sense to be a part of this team. I know the Steelers don't do things perfectly. We can say that a bunch. Whether it's personnel choices, whether it's X and O's, all those things. We know that the Steelers have their flaws, but you know what? So do Steelers fans, both individually and collectively. So I'm just ready to get rolling. It's spring. There are blossoms around, and I'm just ready for that. For my love for the Pittsburgh Steelers to blossom again when I can get excited about knowing how all these things are working out.
Well said. All right, that does it for us. I will ask everyone out there watching live, or whether it's an audio or in replay, go check out steelcurtainnetwork.com. It's a website that you'll see contributions from all three of us at some point or another. Steelcurtainnetwork.com, updated every single day, multiple times a day. We ask that you go check it out. It's a great site. It's a beautiful site, growing community. Want you to be a part of it. It's totally free, costs you absolutely nothing. Go to the top of the page, click log in, create an account, free, comment, be a part of the community. We hope you check it out, steelcurtainnetwork.com. Check out all of our podcasts. But that's a wrap. Dave, why don't you send us out like you always do?
Hey.
We'll see you next week. Another Steelers preview.
Steel Curtain Network. Get it.
Everybody else gets a little tight.